Hello everybody, welcome to Sam and Rachel's Amazing Science Lab. Today we will be learning about the naming of compounds when you see a formula. Let's assume that you all know what ions are and the difference between an ionic compound and a covalent compound. A simple way to identify would be to check if there are any metals in the formula. For example, sodium chloride would be an ionic compound because it contains the atom sodium, which is a metal, and the atom chlorine, which is a nonmetal. Ionic compounds have a metal and nonmetal in them. Carbon dioxide, on the other hand, would be a covalent compound because it does not contain any metals. Now let's get to naming. The negative and the positive parts need to be balanced in order to form an ionic compound. For example, when you take a sodium atom and want to put it with an oxygen atom, you need two sodium atoms to form a compound with oxygen. Because oxygen has a charge of -2, while sodium atoms have a charge of +1. Therefore, you need two sodium atoms to form a compound. Sodium oxide doesn't have any prefixes because it is an ionic compound, since sodium is a metal while oxygen isn't. If we had a compound with iron and oxygen, this is also an ionic compound because iron is a transition metal. However, this is not as simple to name as other ionic compounds. You still need the charge to be balanced, but transition metals don't have a set number of valence electrons. Here's where you need to do some math. So we know that oxygen has a charge of -2. We only have one iron atom, therefore iron needs to have a charge of +2. Here's how we would write that. Iron, parentheses, Roman numeral 2, oxide. Now let's talk about naming covalent compounds. Because covalent compounds don't give away their electrons, we don't need to have the charge to be balanced. For example, if we had 2 nitrogens and 4 chlorines, we would write that using prefixes. So the name would be dinitrogen tetrachloride. Sometimes you will see people write carbon dioxide with a formula of CO2 instead of monocarbon dioxide. That's because people just automatically assume that the first atom in the formula with no prefix is a mono atom. That's all for today. Thanks for listening in on Sam and Rachel's Amazing Science Lab.